Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Julia Peng, and I'm an associate at Cotchett, Pitre, McCarthy. I am the co-chair of the AABA Education Committee, along with Francis Yang, who is behind the scenes today helping us run the show. This event is recorded and will be made available to all registered attendees. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to our speakers today. The first up is Natasha Hsieh. She is the Senior Corporate Associate at Silicon Legal Strategy. Her practice focuses on advising and representing emerging technology companies and investors. And her hobbies include wine tasting and traveling to wine regions around the world. Our next panelist is Kelly Matayoshi. She is a partner at Farella, Braun, and Martel. She practices business litigation and employment, with an emphasis on helping clients in the consumer products and manufacturing industry. Now, her hobbies include taking her dog Penny to the beach and playing Fortnite. Our next panelist is Kevin Hsieh. He is the Deputy City Attorney for San Francisco City Attorney's Office. He represents the city of San Francisco in complex litigation, both affirmative and defensive. He also brings suit on behalf of the people of California to remedy unlawful, fraudulent, and unfair business practices. His hobbies include wine tasting, exploring restaurants, and most importantly, keeping his 2-year-old daughter entertained and tantrum-free. And so with that quick introduction, we'll launch right into our discussion. And so the first topic to throw at the group is, given our fluctuating circumstances with COVID right now, how can young attorneys excel in this environment? And if you can please talk about transitioning back to in-person, as I know some firms and companies are starting to do that. So Kelly, if you could start us off.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. And really thanks, Julia and Francis, for putting this together. It's so important, especially in COVID times, to be providing these resources to junior attorneys. I do think it is a really hard time to be a junior attorney. Having everyone, separated and remote working is actually a really difficult environment, I think, to be starting out in, and to make sure that you're getting the skills that you need in order to succeed at your job. So, in terms of, you guys have been doing it probably for over a year now, but, it really is about, reaching out, making sure everyone's very clear on expectations and the communication is there, because that's the piece that gets kind of lost without being in the office, is, being able to walk over to someone's office, run into people in the hallways, and have that flow of communication naturally. Now all of our communication it needs to be very intentional, because we don't run into each other. And in terms of the transition back into the office, I think firms are approaching it differently. And so, it's still, is to be seen how people are going to handle that transition. My personal opinion on it is that the more junior you are, the more important it is for you to be back in the office. So if you can kind of think of it like a sliding scale, because I think the in-person contact is really the most valuable to junior attorneys. And then as you get a little more senior, how things work, people a little better. That becomes a little less important. And there is a nice flexibility to not being in the office. I'm not saying everyone needs to go back into the office or anything like that. But I think it's important. It's an important thing to consider when you're thinking about that transition back, of how important these soft benefits are to being back. And I think you reap more when you are a junior attorney.
Natasha or Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, maybe I'll just chime in. I think, definitely agree with Kelly that face-to-face can help you develop relationships, and that's very important when you're a junior attorney. And also to just make the interaction feel less transactional. So you're not just hopping on the phone, talking about the one project, and then you never see this person again or talk about other things. So you can definitely start building in a little bit of chit-chatting or kind of catching up for the first few minutes, even if you're just talking on Zoom or talking on the phone. But I think going back into the office, the more junior you are, you'll also learn to how everybody works, and you can take cues from others in the office. For my firm, we're also flexible, but there are about 5 or 6 people who are always in the office now, and it's so nice to just have that interaction that Kelly mentioned, that you can walk down to somebody's office and say, hey, can I run this question by you? And I think that's invaluable when you're developing a practice and just need to pick somebody's brain for, 5 minutes.
And actually, can I add something to that? Because it is, to kind of put a point on it, like it's a very intangible benefit, right? It's, in order to have someone mentor you and want to help you to improve, which is really what you need. You need someone, especially as a junior attorney, to like take your hand and be like, okay, here's how it's going to go, right? And in order to form that relationship where someone wants to do that for you, because it is a lot, it's work, for more senior attorneys to invest the time to mentor you. And in order to create that relationship where somebody wants to do that, that's where the in-person, getting to know someone informally, that's not all about work, about their pets and their kids, type of relationship. Like that's where, if you can create that type of relationship, they're much more likely to mentor you. And that's why you need that, more informal interaction.
Yeah, and you both touched on, very important topics. And that kind of leads us into the next question, which is how a junior associate or a junior attorney should be and can navigate the world of getting feedback, developing those relationships, and being part of a team, all while producing quality work product.
I guess I'll take this one. So in terms of getting good feedback, I think one thing to keep in mind, is to maintain the perspective of the person you're getting feedback from. Say it's a partner and you're working in a law firm. The partner's primary goal is to serve his or her client. It's not to give you feedback. Mentoring is something that's important to a lot of people, but it's not the first thing that's in most people's mind. So if you want feedback, you need to ask for it. I don't think you should be shy about asking for it. And you also need to be clear about what sort of feedback you want. So for example, if you want line edits on a brief, you should make that clear that, this is the first brief I'm writing, and I would really like some critique about how I'm writing. Or if it's just, am I doing this right? Is this the right tone or whatever? Then that will require less time with the person. So I think just being upfront about what it is you want and being clear about what you want is important. And of course, you should ask for it before you expect to receive it. So don't if you want to ask a partner, oh, did I handle this client meeting well? You should make that clear before the meeting rather than after, so that he or she is aware of how you're doing in the meeting while it's going on. Another thing to think about is don't ask for it in the middle of a client emergency or some sort of time-sensitive situation. You should take a step back, let people deal with whatever they're doing with first. And then at an appropriate time, they can give a little bit more thought to it. And in terms of developing relationships and working in a team, I agree with everything that Natasha and Kelly said earlier. It is important to meet people. One thing my wife likes to say this is, in pre-COVID times, never eat lunch alone. And what she means by that is you should take every opportunity to interact with the people around you, people who can add value to your professional life. And even if they don't add value to your professional life, you should get to know people in your workplace just because you can and just because you should be a nice person. So FaceTime helps. Stopping by someone's desk, asking them to go to lunch helps. I think that's important to finding your place in a law firm. You don't want to be known, or a government office, you don't want to be known as that new jerk who came in. You want to develop a reputation as not only someone who does good work, but also someone who people will enjoy working with.
Yeah, I mean, the reputation part is so important. And you do create reputations very quickly for better or for worse. So it's something that you definitely need to be looking out for. And you want to create a reputation as, a team player, someone who is, part of the firm, who's reliable, who does what they say they will do, right? Those are kind of big qualities, especially for junior attorneys. And so to that end, I think that the hardest part or the thing that junior attorneys struggle most with, I'll say, is managing that time, right? Because you get to this, law firm or new company or government, and you want to kind of take on everything, and people are happy to give you things because it's less work for them if you do it. So you can be over eager and kind of put too much on your plate, and that when you do that, it's going to harm your work product. You're not going to be able to produce at the highest levels, and really earn that reputation as someone who can do this work. So that's just something you want to kind of look out for. You want to be the team player, and working at a law firm is very hard, and you do need to stretch yourself. You can't be the person who also just protects their time just for themselves and has all of their nights and weekends when other people are picking up the slack for them. You don't want that reputation, but you want to find that balance of having being a team player with making sure that you're not overloading yourself. And that's a really hard thing to do because you don't know how long things take. You'll only kind of get that sense from doing it a couple times and seeing. So it's hard for you to know what that balance is. And that's where really the only way to mitigate that, other than time and experience, is by talking to people, making it very clear when someone gives you an assignment, these are the other things that are due around that time period, getting their thoughts on how long something will take, and just being communicative, so that if something does start to slip, or it looks like maybe I'm not going to hit that deadline, you're giving people advance notice, because we understand things get busy, in litigation especially, things pop up. Everyone's very understanding of that. What people are not going to be understanding of is why you told them the day before the deadline, and now it's a problem. Whereas had it been a couple days earlier, well, we could have worked around that. We could have gotten an extension, pulled someone else on. There's always ways to fix and address these problems, as long as you over communicate almost, and make sure everyone knows what's happening and that you're meeting the expectations that you're setting out.
That's very much true. And I think in my experience as well, when you come to get feedback, not only do you have to be sensitive of people's time, but you also have to have thoughtful questions. You can't really just come to the table and say, help me. You kind of have to walk them through, here's what I've thought about, and here are where I think things should be going, but I'm not understanding this point. So if you could clarify this, or I've tried this and it's not working, so talk me through it. People tend to be more receptive. And I think previously, Kevin might have touched on a point about there's no such thing as a first draft, especially to your partners or even potentially a senior associate. And I was wondering if Kevin could expound a little bit more on that.
Yeah, sure. I think a couple things that, I've been practicing for about 11 years now, and, I've seen a lot of interns and junior associates come through on my projects. And I think one thing that a lot of junior attorneys don't understand is that time is very valuable, and especially as you get more senior, you have more pressures on you. and more just more things demanding your attention. So there's very little more annoying than someone coming up to you and saying, hey, that thing you asked me to work on, here are some rough notes I jotted down. Can you take a look at it? Or, this is just some, a quick rough outline I wrote up. Can you let me know what you think? Or this is, an incomplete draft. I'll finish it later, but can you just see how I'm doing right now? There's nothing more infuriating than that. So, I think one thing to keep in mind is what Julia said, that, there's no such thing as a first draft. What you give to someone who's reviewing your work should be as polished and as thoroughly researched and worked on as you possibly can do under the circumstances. That's not to say that, as a first-year associate, what you give someone is what's going to be filed in court. What I mean by that is you should put in your best effort. You should make sure that you have exhausted all avenues that you possibly can. So, for example, if there's a legal question you don't know, make sure you read through the cases in Westlaw. Make sure you read a treatise. Make sure you spoke with someone else in the office who might have more knowledge on this topic than you do. Don't just look on Westlaw, realize there's no immediate answer, and then later on your supervisor says, well, did you check the rudder guide? And you're like, oh no, I didn't, oops. You don't want to be put in that situation. So that's what I mean. And along those lines, when even if this is the first draft of a brief, it should be, blue booked, site checked, no typos. There's nothing that will look worse on you than if there's a typo in, the first sentence of something you wrote, or the brief just doesn't look polished or whatever. So just realize, especially as a junior attorney, as both my co-panelists have already reiterated, reputation is important. So if you have a reputation from the get-go that you are sloppy or not doing a thorough job, that will stick with you.
Yeah, I've heard from Natasha actually that she has a great tip that you have two clients. One is your supervisor and one is your external client. Natasha, I'll let you expound on that.
Yeah, and pretty much everything Kevin already talked a little bit about too. It's you have two clients, your external client of the firm, and also your supervisor, your supervising attorney. And it's important for you to build trust with both and build credibility with both. And so something like Kevin mentioned, sweating the small. As a junior attorney, sweating the small details is something that you can really value add for the team. Make sure all the numbers are correct, make sure all the dates are correct, the client's name is spelled correctly in the document, and there's no formatting inconsistencies. These are things that you can do very easily to give someone, when just at first glance that they feel like they've gotten something that's close to final product or something that you've put efforts into. And the second thing is kind of adding to what Kevin said, when kind of think about what the end product will be, what are you going to give to the client ultimately? So if the client asks you to research a legal question and you talk to the supervising attorney and you're saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to send them an email summary of the analysis. Then think about how you can prepare your research or format your, maybe draft up the email for your senior attorney to review, because that's ultimately what is going to go out the door. So make their job easier for them is going to really earn you a lot of credit. And if ultimately the work product needs to be a memo for your analysis, then structure your research or your findings as an outline. Here's what I think how the memo should be structured. And that would really help. And this also would help you grow as an attorney, because you're really thinking about not just the immediate task you're doing, but what ultimately will go out the door and what ultimately will be presented to the client.
Can I just, add, because I feel like I don't want to scare people too much, because I feel like what we're basically saying is like, you gotta be perfect and don't mess up, and and that's not, you should always strive for that, right? That's what we're saying. Like don't do things halfway. But you should always feel free to ask questions, and the earlier the better, because there's nothing worse than I give an assignment, I don't hear about it for like 2 weeks, and someone pops up and they're like, I've just spent 50 hours researching this, and we look at it and it's like it's all like wrong or not on point, right? Like nobody benefits from that scenario when it could have been clarified earlier. So like checking in, that's where like the communication part comes in handy. But not being able to ask questions, because we do want to make sure that you're doing the right thing and not going off on some tangent. And then the other thing is you'll make mistakes, and you'll make a lot of them. Like we've all made a bunch of like terrible mistakes and done exactly all the things that we're saying like don't ever do, right? So I think the most important thing is you make the mistake, like own it, never try to cover it up, or there's always some excuse for it, but like you don't really want, you just want to kind of be like, okay, own it, figure out how to improve it, and then do it, right? And demonstrate to the people that have seen the mistake that you have fixed it, you've overcome it. I'd make like a special point that like if they said you kept on missing deadlines, that you work with them again and you hit those deadlines, and you make an extra effort to do so that later on they say, okay, well, they sure, like in the beginning they had this reputation for not doing that, but they fixed that, that issue is not a problem anymore. So really not trying to hide it and feeling like okay, I'll never work with that person again, and that will solve that problem, right? Like that might you won't run into that issue with that person again, but you're not demonstrating that you've improved. And so really think about it that way. Like everyone understands you're going to mess up, and that's fine, but just show growth, show improvement from it.
Yeah, I very much echo the importance of understanding and accepting the growing pains of being a junior associate. You're not going to go home feeling amazing about your day every day that you go to work. And I feel like a lot of times, sometimes the silence means that you're doing a great job, and you just have to, kind of roll with that. But people, especially junior associates or young attorneys, shouldn't feel intimidated by their work environment to ask for help, because oftentimes it is those exact issues that you're worried about asking that gets you into trouble. And so given all these high expectations that we've now set for our junior attorneys, let's discuss how to manage their time, or what should they be focusing on in terms of priorities to produce the quality work products.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. You probably don't know how long something will take, and that's totally okay. And we all understand that as somebody who's been there before. And you'll have questions about the substantive issues, and that's also totally okay. I think in my practice, where I work with startup companies and investors, more often than not, I'm working on, let's say, 5 to 8, sometimes to 10 clients on a daily basis. So I'll be doing projects for all of them. And the most important thing I think I would, one advice I would give to everybody here is figure out a good system for you to maintain your own to-do list that works for you. And this can be flagging your emails. This can be writing down the to-do list physically. This can be a Dropbox paper, or I use this to-do list app that's on my phone and on my computer. And you just, as a junior attorney, you want to be in control of all the open items that are on your plate and the deadlines, so you can prioritize appropriately. And the other thing is to stay flexible. New things will come up, deadlines, timelines will change. And so even if your head's down on a big project, or working on writing a large agreement or brief, it's important to get into a good habit of checking your email maybe every 2 hours or 3 hours. Come up for air. Like, you should be drinking water, take a break. Don't just be sitting there for 3 hours and not move. But get into the habit of checking your email every couple of hours, even if your head's down, because that would give you a sense of, has anything come up that may need you to address and switch gear. That happens a lot in what we do. And the other thing that Kelly already touched upon, like something that's the worst for senior attorneys and for clients is they send an email and they hear nothing. It just goes out into a black hole. So these, kind of like periodic check-ins to your email allows you to, even if it's not urgent, you can respond with I'm on it, or that's great, but I'm working on this huge agreement right now. I probably won't have time to turn to it till this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Is that okay? That allows you to manage expectations. So those are, I think, a couple of tips I would suggest for time management. So you can, as long as you have a good to-do list habit, and also just be communicative with your team, and also like set the timing expectations, that would really help you earn credibility as well.
I mean, it really is, it's expectation management, and it's managing upward, right? Like when you think of time management, you might be thinking like, oh, it's just me and like how I am doing my own time. And like, and that is part of it. Like you do want to be productive with your time, but I just want to echo like what Natasha said, like it's expectation management, making sure that you're managing up, that the people above you know what you're doing, know when, you're going to get to it, and that you're hitting it, or you are managing their expectations of when it will get to them, right? And then you do the work on your end. But that really is like the essence of time management.
And I would like to add that younger attorneys should be obsessed with their calendars. They should definitely know the deadlines that are coming up, should be the ones informing the team of the deadlines that are coming up. And that way, it adds a lot of value to the team, I think, especially for more senior associates and attorneys on the team. Sometimes they're too busy and they're not really aware of, a deadline that's coming up. And so I think that's really helpful. And then what are some healthy ways that you guys have found are good for coping with the stress of being an attorney?
So I'll say, it's a very stressful job, and it's a lot of time. I mean, that's just the essence of the job. People don't really tell you that when you're in law school or before law school. So, but here we are. This is kind of what we've signed up for. I think the biggest mistake that junior attorneys make in this regard is not taking the time when it's slow, right? So it's a busy job and it ebbs and flows. And when you're busy, there's not much you can do that, to slow it down. You just kind of have to, put your head down and barrel through it. I mean, take care of your mental health and get sleep. I do all those things too. But there are times when you'll just have to work really hard. And then the mistake is when things get slow, when you have those moments when you can show up to work late, leave early, take that vacation, you're too afraid to do it. You're like, oh, I know, but I need to be here to show that I'm like a hard worker. That's not how you demonstrate that you're a hard worker. So, take the time when you have it, when it's slow, embrace it, take that vacation, leave work early for a baseball game or whatever. And just, to kind of mitigate the, uncertainty of that, just make sure people know you're free, you have time. You don't want people to think like, oh, they're just off doing whatever and not helping when help is needed, right? So just tell people like, hey, I'm available, and if you have work, I can help. And if they say they don't, then you've kind of covered your bases, made sure that you've made yourself available, but then take the time that you have.
Yeah, I think to echo what Kelly said, you should. One of the hardest things about being a junior attorney is trying to get away from the natural guilt that you feel about not having work or not feeling like you're contributing. Like if you are slow and you don't have work and you've already asked people, is there anything I can help on? And they say, not at the moment. you should walk away from your desk and go do what it is that you enjoy. I think just remember that before you were a lawyer, you were a person with interests, and you should continue, law is a noble profession, but it's ultimately just a job. And so you have to think, this job is just to sustain me and my livelihood, but I have friends, I have pleasures, I have things that interest me. And so you should seek those out. Of course, be cognizant of your work culture. Unfortunate, I think this is very uncommon now. Unfortunately, there are some places where FaceTime is important, like you're expected to be at your desk 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever, even when you have nothing to do. But assuming you don't work in a place like that, which I think is very rare now, you should go to the gym if you have some free time, or go take a leisurely lunch. Make time for your family. I think as you earn more trust with your supervisors, you can sort of let them know, like, oh hey, 7 to 8 is like when I have dinner with my family, and if you've earned their trust, they will, unless they're crazy, will respect that. So I think it's as everyone has said, managing expectations, knowing that you're available, knowing that you typically do good work, and that you're reliable. That creates room for you to continue to do things that support your mental health and your happiness.
And I think I have, I guess I'll offer up 2 tips. One is, like everybody said, it's good to create separation. And since law school, I have done this where I usually take Saturdays off. In law school, I wouldn't do anything law school related, and at work, I wouldn't do anything work related on Saturdays. To the extent I can. Obviously, there are times when big projects come up where I have to be available and I'm working on Saturdays. But as much as I can, as much as you can, build in. Definitely set aside time for your family, for personal relations, for interests. I do a lot of wine studies outside of work, so that's my hobby. So don't lose those as you become an attorney, because you can, maybe you instead of 2 days a week that you get to do, maybe you only get to do it for 3 hours, but that would really sustain you and give you a break from what you're doing, and really would make you a better lawyer. And when you come back, you'll be more refreshed. And the second thing is, we're all human. Things will go wrong, and as Kelly said earlier, we've all made plenty of mistakes, and so it's one tip that I got when I was a junior attorney was to create this thing called a rainy day folder in your Outlook. So what that does is, if you get an email from a client that says, thank you, this is great, this is super helpful, drag those emails to the rainy day folder. If you get some, praises or good comments, good feedbacks from people around you, drag it into the folder. And when there's a bad day, go to that folder and remind yourself the bad day is just one of many, many other good days. So it's good and bad, that just, they'll come with the job, so the bad day would not be the defining moment of your career. And I think the flip side is also true on your teams. If you really appreciate people who have helped you, send them a say thank you, really show that, and that would really help their day as well. So I think that goodwill is something that's good for you to also think about. And don't feel like I'm a junior, why would I say thank you to but if they've taken time to review your product, if they could taken time to sit down and eat lunch with you, say thank you, I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me. And I think that would really go a long way.
And on the flip side of that, can you guys talk a little bit about what you do find to be very fulfilling about these very stressful and busy jobs that you all have, and you're all very successful in your own realms? And so if you could discuss that a little bit.
I'm happy to go first. I'm very lucky to have a job that I truly enjoy. I have always been attracted to the law, something about making arguments, being persuasive, being logical has always appealed to me. And in my current job, not only do I get to do a lot of litigation, but it's also, I'm someone who gets bored very easily, and I find I need a job that's mentally stimulating. And in my job, I'm able to do federal and federal and state court work, trial and appellate work, and we're not limited by subject matter. It's just whatever interests us. And so I've been very fortunate in that, I find my job personally fulfilling. And not only that, but I'm a native San Franciscan. And so being at the San Francisco City Attorney's Office, where I'm representing the city and its people, has a lot of meaning for me. So I think finding a job, having this job that's interesting, that is meaningful, and my colleagues in my workplace is generally very supportive of your personal life. It's a very collaborative environment. And so, I think, you can find, there are jobs out there that aren't miserable, and, you should try to seek it out. Look around your law school classmates, who seems to be happy, who doesn't seem to be happy, and then you'll start seeing some trends there. So I think, yeah, just, when I have some friends, I was talking with a friend of mine who's a partner, a corporate partner at a major law firm, and I tell him, oh, I love litigating. He just finds that horrific, so, my job's not for everyone. Whereas I find everything he does horrific, but anyway.
I think I'm with your friend, because I find litigation just so scary. I can't. I think what really similar to Kevin, I feel like with my job, I definitely find I like. I've always thought about going into law school as being an attorney, as somebody who help companies and help businesses. So in my current practice as a startup attorney, I get to work with founders who are excited about their idea, wanting to bring the idea to fruition and be able to change the world with their idea. And that's something just really exciting for me. And I can get up every day, and and also I get to act as outside general counsel to all my company side clients. And basically that means I see everything legal that comes their way. So that could be raising money, that could be firing or hiring employees, or that could be, hey, we got this letter that told us that we can't use our name. What do we do? So having that exciting, different projects every day really helped me. And then also the team, like really find a group of people that that I can work with, having that collaborative environment and being excited too. We actually, one thing about COVID that I really miss from work is we used to eat lunch together every day. We would go out and buy lunch and eat. We have picnic tables at the office, and we would eat lunch and talk about movies or talk about, Subway versus Togo's. But this is, those are the things that I really truly miss about seeing my colleagues. And I think these are the things that will, give you the strength to get up every day and go to work. And even when there are bad days, you're still going to be like, oh, I'm with people that will help me through this.
Yeah, I'm a Subway person personally, but we can have that debate offline. I think what everybody said, like the teamwork and the problem solving are things I enjoy. But I'll also say, I enjoy my job now more now than I did when I started, because when you start, you're just learning everything and you're kind of doing like grunt work, the grunt work of legal work. And, responding to discovery, like reviewing, a production, probably like not the most fulfilling thing. And it's hard to find fulfillment in that. So I'll also say, the job gets better with time. Like as you learn more, as you get more autonomy over what you're doing, as you start to develop that legal strategy and be able to contribute in that way, like that is really fun. That's like the more fun legal work than what you probably do as a really junior attorney. So, the job will, change over time, and sometimes you just need to kind of stick in there long enough to get to the point where you can have and have those experiences of the fun part of law. And the other thing I'll say is, I find a lot of fulfillment in legal things outside of my legal work, right? Like, so AABA is a good example of that, right? Like it's legal adjacent, but I think that there's a lot of good that attorneys can do. And, having the platform and the privilege, frankly, to be able to do that type of work is also really fulfilling. So, I like the legal work for what the legal job for what it allows me to do kind of outside of the workplace as well. And I think you can find a lot of fulfillment in that.
I want to echo something, build up, touch on something Kelly said too. I think, as being a junior attorney is the most pleasant thing there is. But I think there are two ways to derive happiness from what you do, which may seem like grunt work. One is feeling ownership of what you're doing. You might be on a case with 20 people, but there's a small discrete part that's carved out for you, and just know that you're going to be the expert on that part, and that everyone else on the team is relying on you for it. And a lot of the stuff that junior attorneys do, senior attorneys could not last if you did not do that work. You know the documents better than they do. You know the case law better than they do. And so it's your work that's really going to ultimately lead to success for your client. So I think, understanding that and taking ownership of that little part that you're doing is important. And the second thing is just having a little perspective. Yes, what you're doing might seem like grunt work. It might seem awful, but it is developing the skills that will lead you to the level of comfort that Kelly is talking about, that she has now. You won't get to where Kelly is now if you hadn't done all that stuff. Doc review is extremely important. I'm on the interview committee for my office right now, and we are looking for people with serious document management capabilities, because that's such an important part of our job. So what you're doing as a junior attorney is extremely important. There are people applying right now who've, on the resume, they say, I've written 20 appellate briefs, but did you do any discovery? No, we're not interested in you. So this kind of stuff is very important.
And I'll add a corporate example, because I have no idea what Kevin just said about doc review and depo, but doing like on the corporate side, doing a closing checklist. I think when you get to become a senior attorney means you can manage process, and means you can anticipate what's coming next. So do on the corporate side, what we do when you put together closing volume. As a junior attorney, I definitely dreaded it, but that actually, you make a list of all the documents that went into a transaction, and that helps you see, okay, chronologically, these are things that need to happen step by step. And with that, that's how you know. So the next time you do another deal, you'll think, hey, all right, I did 15 documents last time. I did this checklist with closing check binder with 15 documents. What's next? And that would allow you to think about, okay, what's coming next, and then anticipate that need. And if you become the person that can anticipate the next step, that's when you show growth, and also you can really help the team out by saying, oh, for my last deal, we had to get tax counsel involved for this step. Should we do it now? And because that gives you more time to do certain things instead of rushing at the end.
Yeah, it sounds like as you're learning, you're gaining more trust, and then you get more flexibility with your work and the hours that you work. Can you guys talk a little bit more about what kind of flexibility you've attained as you've gained more seniority and the trust of your peers?
Yeah, I mean, I still remember as like a first year associate, I was like tied to my phone because I was like incessantly checking it for emails. I wanted to like respond immediately, all of that stuff. Now that I'm more senior, I know that not everything's a fire drill, right? Just because a partner emails you doesn't mean that you need to respond like within a couple hours, or you're a bad associate. So, some of it's just learning that perspective. And actually, I started drawing more lines for myself, right? Like if it's not something important, I intentionally try not to respond to it until we're back in working hours, unless, I need to, or unless I'm trying to like preempt doing more work on the next day or something like that. But like, I think it's important to not have that, mentality. And then with that said, like, yeah, like in the beginning, like you have to counter that with like, you want to show responsiveness. It doesn't have to be like, really, really prompt, on the weekend if it's not something important, but, first thing Monday, you want to respond so that the people that you're working with know that like, you didn't miss something, you're on top of things. And then, as you build that trust, when people know, like if I send something to you, I know I'll get done, even if I don't get a response, Monday morning, whatever, like I know I'll get it by Monday midday or Monday afternoon or, something like that. You kind of start building in and getting that flexibility to be able to, and the comfort not to respond to things immediately. And that makes your life a lot easier. That makes the job more enjoyable, to not be jumping on, every little thing.
And in terms of flexibility, as well as you have more experience, do you feel like you can start asking for certain types of work, or should you still, wait for things to come your way?
If I'll take a stab at this. I think, and I don't think this is a surprise to my co-panelists or to a lot of people in the audience, but I think, as people of Asian American background, there's this tendency to think that if you work hard and put your head down, things will come to you. That may or may not be true, but over the years, I've learned that you should ask for the things you want. Like, obviously, if you're first year, don't ask to make the opening statement in your trial. But within reason, you should ask for the things you want. People don't know what you want. They can't read your mind. But if you ask them, they might say no, but they might keep you in mind the next time that comes around. And at the very least, they know that you're eager and ambitious and want that sort of experience. You will just ask for what you want, because if you don't, then there's no one out there that's going to be advocating for you. But you might have a shot, whereas if you don't ask, you might never have a shot.
And then you also know, like, if you need to leave, right? Like if you keep on asking for something and then you don't get it, and it's something that you really want, then like, okay, like maybe I need to go to someplace where I can get the things. But if you don't ask, then you don't get it, you can't be like, oh, like, why didn't they give me this thing I didn't ask for, right? You just wouldn't know that this isn't the right place. So it's good to ask, so that you can evaluate for yourself whether you want to be in a place like this.
Echoing what Kevin and Kelly said, I think it's okay to ask, sometimes even with the expectation that you'll get shot down, because then you do present yourself as the squeaky wheel, as somebody who's thought through and has a plan for yourself. I mean, people want to sign on to your plan, and they will keep you in mind for future opportunities if they know that this is something that you want. And I think it's a fine line between being a gunner and being assertive, and that's for each individual to figure out. But don't be afraid to come off as a little bit of a gunner, even if that's the concern in the beginning. You'll figure it out. But if you don't try and if you don't ask and if you keep it all silent, then people aren't going to be as willing to help you because they don't know what you want. And then this kind of gets us to the importance of developing rapport with your peers, with your clients, and with third parties that you work with. Kelly, if you could expound on that.
Yeah. So I think of it, so it's really important and it's also fun, right? I think that's the key here. It's important because even though everybody, technically has to do their job, right? There's going to be circumstances when you need something, like you need something expedited, for example. And, if you have been a jerk to the court reporter the whole time, and then you turn around and ask them to expedite a transcript for you, they're more likely to say no. So, you should do it because, at some point, and you will not know when it is, but at some point you're going to need something from them. And if you are nice to them, they are more likely to do it. But it's also fun. And you shouldn't just do it just because you're like, oh, I'm going to need something from them later. Right? Like, it's also nicer to, work with people that to, talk to your assistant about how their weekend was and, know things about them. It makes the workplace so much less transactional, and it means that you're working with people that know you, that like you, etc. So, it's important for that reason. And then, in terms of your peers, other associates, I will say most people at law firms leave, right? And a lot of them go in-house. So you can even think of it as biz dev, because, these are the people who will be going in-house, will be making decisions. You want them to like you. These are actually people who are most likely to give you business because they are people who have seen your work, know about you professionally. So much better than just, meeting someone at a mixer or something like that, right? These are people who are going to be really valuable for you later. And also at the firm too, you can be in a pinch at the law firm too, and really need someone's help. So, there's no reason not to. It is important, and take the time to do it. Cause I know I don't think anyone here is a jerk, right? It's more like you need to take some of that time in a very busy, schedule as an associate to invest in these relationships. And so, you just need to be thoughtful about it and then intentionally carve out that time.
Right. We're coming up to 6:30, so we'll go through a couple questions that we've received during this event. And the first one is, do you guys have any advice on taking vacation days as a junior attorney?
I'll jump in. Take them, right? And provide notice, right? That's the biggest thing. And be wary of deadlines, right? So that's actually a good reason to provide a lot of notice, because deadlines get dropped on you all the time that you have no control over. And if you have already told them that you have a vacation, then it's much better than having a deadline and then going to someone and saying, hey, I actually need to be gone for it. So the earlier you can provide notice, the better. Providing reminders, because swear to God, I get emails from someone saying I'm going to be gone then, and I'm like, cool, and then I forget, and then then we get closer, and I'm like, oh wow, I actually forgot that you told me that, so now there might be something I was relying on you for, or whatever that so reminders that this is that's coming up, and then just know hopefully you can guard your vacation. It really depends on the workplace. Unexpected things happen, but do as much as you can to guard the vacation. I have my approach to vacation, which isn't everybody's approach, is I monitor my emails. It makes me less stressed. Everyone's like, why do you do that? I'm like, it makes me less stressed to know that, everything is being handled, and I'm not going to come back to this inbox that's crazy. So I monitor my emails. I know other people who say I don't check my emails at all during vacation, or I only check it every couple of days or something like that. I check my email every day. That's a personal choice to figure out, what works for you in terms of that balance between, being on vacation, taking that time, but also like not being super stressed about whatever is happening when you're not checking your emails.
Yeah, I recommend taking your vacation days as well. As you know, I think that's really important to unplug and do something, from and come back to be a better team player. And for our office, we actually have a protocol, and I think maybe this is something that you guys can, maybe something you can use. So 3 days before the vacation, or 2 weeks, if you're going to be gone for more than 3 days, actually a week before, we would send an email to everybody at the, maybe people you work with, but for us it's everybody at the firm, because we're a firm of 40 people, to say, hey, I'm going to be on vacation from this day to this day. And that really gives people a closer date in mind that you're going to be gone. And then I would say 3 days before your last day in the office, maybe do a list. And this is when your to-do list can also be really important. You can import that and, go to the partners and say, hey, here are the things I have with you. Do you want me to talk to another associate to cover, or how do you want me to do a clean handle, transition of the active projects? And that will really allow you to take your vacation time as clean as possible. So, because that everything will be covered, and also that shows, to the partners, to your senior attorneys, that you are, really thinking about how to make sure the client is how to make sure they're taken care of. So I think those are a couple of tips for you to make sure you can really get a vacation. And like Kelly, I monitor my email on vacation. As you can see outside my window, I'm actually in New York this week, but this is not work, so I get to chat with friends here. I monitor my email, and I actually get rid of email lists or newsletters. So I come back to a smaller inbox, but then I also make sure that, say, the client did not just email me. And oftentimes you'll still have clients, even if they get your out of office, they just sit and wait. And so if I see that, and I see that they haven't sent it to the team or sent it to somebody else, then I will forward the email on. So, but other than that, I really don't respond or don't reach out, because you want to make sure you don't want to. This is another manager expectation. You don't want to make people think that you're checking your email while you're on vacation, because then they're going to be like, oh, then I can go and ask Natasha this question, and she will, she can just do this in 30 minutes. So definitely guard your vacation. They're sacred, and you deserve those days. And so do whatever you can to hand off things before you go. I think that's the best way to be able to really, be able to take your time.
That's great. Thank you all. I think that's all that we have time for today. So big thank you to Kevin, Natasha, and Kelly for such a thoughtful discussion. And I know I certainly walked away with a ton of practical tools for me to bring into my practice. And so we have a takeaways document that we created based on this conversation with our panel. And that'll be accessible through the link in the chat. And these materials will also be sent to you via email for everyone who's registered. And if you're not an AABA member, we hope that you would consider joining AABA so that you can, partake in more of this excellent programming in the future. And so the link to join is posted in the chat. And again, I want to thank everyone here, and I want to thank our speakers for your time.